The format for this meeting is an interview with an alcoholic, the hot seat, inside the alcoholic studio. A speaker will be asked a series of questions that range from their personal story, the steps, relationship with God, and carrying the message. There are no right answers, just a fun and interesting way to share the speaker's personal insight. Our speaker for tonight is Deanna. Timekeeper, please allow 90 seconds per question. The meeting may run slightly longer. Members, please feel free to leave if needed. Speaker, please say done when you have finished your answers, or please say pass on questions you would prefer to skip. Are you ready?
I am.
Fantastic. Let's begin. Please generally describe, in your own words, our basic text, the book, Alcoholics Anonymous.
The basic text was written, actually there were 100 drunks that Bill got together, and they got stories from a lot of those drunks, and they sat down and Bill designed the book to help the alcoholic get sober and stay sober, one day at a time. Done.
Deanna, are you an alcoholic? And if so, what personally makes you an alcoholic?
I am definitely an alcoholic. And what makes me an alcoholic is that when I put alcohol into my body, I get this strange phenomenon of craving that ensures that I will drink until either there isn't any or I'm out cold.
What does the concept of anonymity mean to you?
Anonymity is that I don't have a face. I know that sounds strange, but in a group of alcoholics, that our group purpose, consciousness of the group, so that my opinion matters, but my opinion is not as important as the entire group's. So I'm anonymous to people outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't share anybody else's information. I don't share my information about Alcoholics Anonymous. However, I'm not anonymous to people inside of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Please give us a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit.
My drinking career was about 17 years, and it started out pretty benign. I was probably 10 years old when I started drinking, or had my first drink. And from the very onset, I drank to get drunk. And to this day, if I were to drink, I am sure I would drink to get drunk. Teetotalers I don't understand teetotalers. I don't understand people who wouldn't do that. But so as every time I used alcohol, I got drunk. And then as time went by, I started out drinking just on Friday and Saturday nights. And then it went to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it got to the point where I was drinking every day, whether I wanted to or not. And we have a twofold disease, so it's actually threefold. The first, I obsess about alcohol, and when I'm not drinking, I'm thinking about drinking. And once I start, I cannot stop. No matter what my will does or says, I have no defense. I can't do anything about it.
Alcoholism is described in the book as a fatal illness. What does that mean to you?
That means to drink is to die. It may not happen right away. I may not die instantly, which is the bad part. It's you die. I would have died if I'd continued drinking from the inside out.
What are the conditions of your mind and body that accompany your alcoholism?
Thought process of an alcoholic is baffling at best. The disease tells me that I don't have it. So I'm wrestling all the time. Do I have a problem? Do I not have a problem? I knew my life was unmanageable, but I didn't know what that meant. I just knew my life was not good. But when I put alcohol into my body, instantly, and I mean instantly, comfort and ease of that drink, and it takes over from there.
In your understanding, what is the role of a sponsor? Do you have a sponsor, and how often are you in contact?
The role of a sponsor is to take one through the steps. I've had many sponsors over the years, and I've learned a lot of things from them. I've never been without a sponsor, and I had a sponsor. The longest was 17 years, and she passed away. So I had to find another sponsor, And that was a kind of a grueling process for me anyway. And so I found the sponsor that I have now. She's fantastic. And I see her probably about once a month or so, but I talk to her about once a week.
How have your sponsorship needs changed from early sobriety until now?
In early sobriety, well, I didn't know this, but I needed someone to tell me what to do. My thinking was faulty in that the things that I believed didn't work. So I had to have somebody tell me what did work, because I didn't know. And if I thought of it, they said do just the opposite.
Have you completed the 12 steps? And if so, what is your suggested time frame for completing the steps of AA?
I have completed the steps. In fact, it was the first thing that I did in Alcoholics Anonymous that I was truly proud of. It was the only thing I finished. Not in AA, but in my life up to that point. And the way that I was taught and the way that I take the girls that I have, we do one step a week. And when you get to the fourth step, you got 3 weeks to do the fourth step, and then we get together and we spend pretty much the whole day on doing a fifth step. So it's usually somewhere around 4.5 months that we can get through them.
In your own words, please describe steps 1, 2, and 3.
I can't, he can, so I'll let him. So the first step is that I'm powerless over alcohol. I know I'm powerless over alcohol. I had plenty of experiences to prove that. And powerless for me is that I don't have the needed power to stop or not take the first drink. I don't have that. But my life being unmanageable, that was more difficult for me. And I had a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Art, told me, Deanna, the next time you walk into your house, and this was back in the day when we had answering machines, and you walk around the corner and there's not a blinking light on your answering machine because he didn't call you, manage to not be upset. That I understood. So I can't manage my life. I can't manage my own feelings. I can't manage my own thoughts. I can't manage to wrest satisfaction out of life no matter how hard I try.
What does your unmanageability and self-will look like?
Well, she thinks she looks pretty, but I'm almost sure she doesn't. Unmanageability, when I was drinking, it looked like I wake up and I think to myself, what am I going to do today? Am I going to get alcohol on my way to work? Is there anything left from last night? Do I still go to lunch and then drink, or do I want to wait? And it goes on, and I haven't gotten out of bed yet. That's unmanageable. My life, however, can also get unmanageable in sobriety. And that usually looks like I've spent too much money. I don't know why I spent so much money. My God, I'm eating too much. And I'm having arguments with my friends or my mother, and I start getting to the point where I can't manage to be happy because I'm not implementing the steps into my everyday living.
What is your concept of a power greater than yourself, and how are you turning your will and your life over to it?
When I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a Sunday school teacher for a Spanish-speaking Pentecostal church, and I didn't speak Spanish. And so it was very rigid. My power greater than me was very rigid. And it took a little while for me to relax from that through sponsorship and going to a lot of meetings and doing some of my own research and searching. Power greater than myself has changed a lot. And I don't really know exactly what that power is, but I don't have to know anymore. And what I liken it to is that there's an energy source out there. I don't know what it is, but it keeps my heart beating. And that's what I talk to most of my girls about, because they're kind of ambivalent about God. And the easiest way I can put it is that my God loves me unconditionally, the same way that I look at my children, and I love them unconditionally. And I don't care what they do, I will never forsake them. And I think they're the cutest things I've ever seen. And I truly believe that that's the way God sees us.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 4 and 5.
4 and 5. Those are the fun ones. 4 and 5 is that 4 is I'm looking at how I became a horse's ass. And I'm quoting that from we did a Newcomers meeting over at Group 3, and that's where it came from. So I'm actually doing an inventory, and I'm looking at my greater handicaps, and step 4, I'm looking in 3 different directions. I'm looking in my resentments. That's my anger, something I'm irritated about. I'm never irritated about anything. I go straight to resentment. And then we're also going to look at fears. And then we also look at a sex inventory. And so we write down the names of the people. We always know who they are. And this gives you the one opportunity to write something down about somebody, no matter how nasty it is, no matter how bad it is. And this is what they did. Got to be real careful, though, not to start getting into like really long fourth steps, because the big book says that we'll sit down and have a long talk. So I try to just do bullet points and then discuss the rest of it. And doing the fears, the part about the fears, I just love this. And the fears, I can't do anything about my fears. It says that my human power has failed me. And so I have to find another human power, or I have to find a power greater than myself that can help me with those fears. I can take those fears away.
What does the exact nature of our wrongs mean to you?
The exact nature of my wrongs. Naturally, on the natural, I should say, I tend to be manipulative, non-truth-telling. I use people. I lie. And basically, I'm selfish and self-centered, and that's my basic nature. So I've had to take the steps, do the steps, so that I can learn another way to live.
Please briefly describe, in your own words, steps 6 and 7.
6 and 7 are the most spiritual steps to me. I have 6 and 7. 6 is that I'm looking at my character defects, and we talk about these in meetings all the time, that there are the 7 deadly sins. And then the 7th step, we're talking about our, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking at to remove our defects and then our shortcomings. And in the shortcomings that's what I was taught, are what I do to satisfy those character defects. Things like lying, stealing, manipulating, trying to manage someone else's life, and so on. So the beautiful thing is, though, is that the 6th and 7th step are the humbling steps, and they will humble you. If you keep doing it, you keep at it, you'd be surprised, really, how those things are changed.
What are some of your character defects, and are they being removed?
Dear God, I hope so. I will tell you of one character defect in particular. Unfortunately, it's lust. And it's not necessarily, lust doesn't have to be the lust of another human being. It could be lust of a El Camino, or it could be lust of a vet, but mine is that for some reason I was looking for love in all the wrong places, and I thought if I met him in AA, then that was probably from God, right? And it got to the point where I was hurting all the time because I wasn't getting my needs met. So I went to my sponsor and said, I don't know what to do. And she said, go home and get on your knees and ask God to help you love him as much as you think you love this guy. And I just asked him, please remove this lust that stands in the way of my being useful. And eventually it was like a miracle. It just went away. Every once in a while it crops up, but not very often at all. That's my only example, not my only example, but that's just one character defect, because I have noticed, or it's been showed to me that when one character defect is invited to the party, they all show up.
Please briefly describe steps 8 and 9.
8 and 9, making amends. First of all, making a list. And I have a list because it's my 4th step. I was shocked when they told me that. What do you mean? Those guys did stuff to me. But I look in the 4th column of the 4th step, and it shows how I treat people. And when I turn that page, it's no longer what they did to me. It's how I treated them. And if you do that, you'll see some really interesting things about yourself. So I had to take a look at those and really look at how I treated people, how I really treated them. I mean, really, really. And had to write a list and what I did. Now, my first sponsor did it. It was pretty complicated at the time. Now I understand it. But so we wrote down what I did, what it affects, and the 9th step is where I go out and I actually make an amends. And there's a big difference between saying I'm sorry and making an amends, is that I'm trying to make it right, and whatever I have to do to make that right is what I'll do.
Why is it important for you to straighten out your past?
Because it will haunt me. It will show up. Whatever you resist persists, and it will show up again and again and again. Besides, if I clean it up, I can actually look my fellows in the eye. And I'm not afraid to go someplace in fear that I'm going to see somebody.
When you were actively drinking, did you drink whiskey in your milk?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. And what that means is that I'm trying to change my drinking, and somehow that will make me a better drinker. I won't get drunk quite so fast. I did things like put a little bit of 7-Up in my wine. I know. Or if I drink hard liquor, I would start out with hard liquor. I mean, I would just, I didn't do that very often because I had children. And then at the end of my drinking, it didn't matter what I had. I just drink it. So I went to light beer instead of regular beer. It had too many calories too. And so I changed things around, or I wouldn't drink at work, which is something most people don't ever have to think about. Or I wouldn't drink at work, and I just wait until I got home at night. And then I just drank too late in the evening. So I was always trying to manage my drinking. It's exhausting.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 10 and 11.
Step 10, doing an inventory. There's 3 different kind of inventories. There is a 1-year inventory, a half-year inventory, and a spot inventory. And the spot inventory is, I just said something mean to someone, and I walk away from them, and my stomach have a barometer that says you are a jerk. And so it'll wrench, and I'm like, you know what? I need to clean that up. And so I'm checking. Well, actually, there's more than that. There's more. So there's a spot, and then I do a nightly inventory. Some people use a sheet. There's a sheet that has some information on it, and it tells you what have you done. And I just go by what's in the big book, and then I look and see where was I wrong? Do I owe anybody an amends? And I'm watching out for self-centeredness, selfishness, and so on. I do it every night, generally, not always. And then when I did the semi-yearly and the yearly, I was told to write down what you'd like to do and be in the next year. And the year passed, and I sat down and we looked at it, and it was really amazing how we sell ourselves short. I wanted a new house, or a house, and I was able to buy a house. I wanted a new job. I got fired and I got a new job. And I just wanted some really good friends. And I had all of those, but I could have had a lot more than that had I thought that I could.
What does meditation mean to you, and how do you practice it?
Meditation means that God talks to me. I've never heard God say, hey, I want to talk to you. but I can hear God in my heart. If that makes any sense. So I will, in the morning when I get up, I have like quite a few books that I read, spiritual books, Alcoholics Anonymous, meditation books, and sometimes just the big book. And then I will just sit there and be quiet and meditate on or think about whatever it was that I read. And then I sit down for probably 10 minutes and do nothing, just sit there. And I concentrate on my breath when it actually catches from inhale to exhale. And that takes my mind away from all the other distractions around. And then, but, and I don't understand it, but somehow when I do that, my day goes really well. I'm much more grounded and easier to get along with, frankly.
Please briefly describe Step 12.
Step 12, working with others. Step 12, there's a lot you can do in working with others and being of service. You can sponsor women. I say women because in where I come from, men stay with the men and the women stay with the women. And doing sponsorship, I can also do H&I. What I did, I just somehow got into general service and have been very busy in general service. And it's something that I advocate. It kept me busy, and it also helped me through a really difficult time in my sobriety. And when I have problems or something comes up, I will do what I was told originally, is pick up the phone, call someone and ask them how they're doing, and then shut up and listen to them.
Can you share with us a spiritual experience you have had as the result of these steps?
Yes, I can. I've had a lot of them. Let's see. I had an experience where I had bought that house we were talking about, and I didn't make a payment. Don't remember why, but I was, and I sat down. It was late, and I just remember going to bed and thinking to myself, "That's it. I'm going to lose the house. I'm going to be under a bridge, and I got to do something about this." So I called my sponsor the next day, and I said, "I'm just really scared." And I didn't have the money at the time. So she said, "I want you to call your mortgage company and you tell them I'm an alcoholic, and my literature says that if I run from my creditors, I will surely drink." And so I called them, and she said, "You'll know when you're supposed to do this, because you'll know, God will tell you." So I'm waiting to hear God say, "Hey, would you call them now?" And instead, I just thought, okay, I'll do it. And I picked up the phone and I called this company, and the line was busy. How often does that happen? And then I got this feeling a little bit later that right now, get up right now, go downstairs and make that call. And I did. And I got on the phone and I heard a lady, and she said, "So-and-so, can I help you?" And I said, "My name is Deanna. I'm an alcoholic, and I am late on my mortgage. The literature I read tells me that I am sure to drink if I run from my creditors. Can you help me?" She said, "Hold, please." And I thought, oh, come on. And then there was another woman who got on the phone. She said, "I'm so-and-so, and let me help you." And so I said, "My name is Deanna, and I'm an alcoholic. I am late on my payment, and my literature says that if I run from my creditors, I'm sure to drink, and I don't want to drink. Can you help me?" And it was complete silence. And she said, "Yes, honey, I'm happy to help you. I know what you're doing. I know why you're doing it, and I will help you." And I said, "Who do you know?" She said, "My father. He's in Alcoholics Anonymous. He's got 15 years, and there's not been a night where he hasn't brought somebody home from a meeting, so I know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, and I will help you." And I just remember getting off the phone, and I just started crying. I'm like, "God, you actually do hear me." I mean, what are the chances of somebody knowing Alcoholics Anonymous and knowing exactly what I was doing? So that to me was a real spiritual experience.
What is the message of AA, and why is it important to carry this message?
The message of AA is that you can stay sober no matter what happens in your life. You can get sober and you can stay sober. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. But what I know is that you can stay sober. I've walked through a lot of really difficult things and have been able to stay sober. And What was the rest of the question again? I'm sorry.
Well, what is the message of AA, and
Okay.
why is it important to carry it?
It's important to carry it because I can't, if I keep it, I'll get sick. I have to give it away to keep it. It's crazy how it works. So I share my message for two reasons. One, I'm helping somebody else. I also share it because I get to hear every word I say.
What are some of the principles you are practicing in your affairs today?
Oh, mercy. Some of the principles are honesty, compassion, understanding, keeping my mouth shut. These are little things. Thinking of others more than I think about myself. Doing little things like picking people up that need rides. And just trying to be all around, I don't want to say a good person, but a spiritual person. I didn't come to AA to get good. I came to AA to get sober.
Why is it important to put the welfare of others ahead of your own?
Because I am selfish and self-centered, and I will put my welfare before anyone else's when I'm in my cups, and I have and I will. So I have to put other people's welfare first, because it's something I've never done. And when I'm thinking about helping someone else, I'm not thinking about my miserable problems. So I'm able to help other people feel good about it, and really just feel good about it. It makes me feel good to help other people.
How do you determine or gauge the quality of your sobriety in AA?
Well, if we don't know ourselves, someone will surely tell us, and have. I know that I have a good program where I'm doing what I'm supposed to do in AA when I feel good about myself, like wholeheartedly, as opposed to the ego feeling good about itself. They're completely two different things. And when my ego feels good, I'm usually getting something, or I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do, and I know it. And when my spirit feels good, I am doing something for someone else.
Why do you think alcoholics relapse?
Well, I can tell you what the book says, that we fail to enlarge our spiritual condition. And because I looked at people and think, man, why did you drink and I didn't? Because I've done some pretty wild things in sobriety, I think anyway. I've done some things that some people would not be able to stay sober with. And it's interesting. The one thing that I have done, though, is I have sought God. That's the one thing I have done consistently, and it's worked. It's worked. I see people doing a lot of service work. Service work is great, and it helps your sobriety, and it helps your program, but it is not the program. Going to conventions and conferences and assemblies is great. It supports your recovery, but it is not the program. It's the steps that are the program, and I have stayed pretty grounded in the steps by teaching other people. Again, I get to hear myself.
Are you willing and able to sponsor other members currently?
I am, and I do. In fact, I got a new sponsee today.
Presently, what is the most important activity in your recovery program?
The most important? Oh, that's good. I'd have to say sharing my experience, strength, and hope with other people. That's the most important, because again, I get to hear everything that I say. And if I'm getting a little bit squirrely or acting a little strange, and that does happen, I have people around me that will say, "Hey, let's talk." So, it can be interesting. It's fun.
Would you please generally describe the purpose of the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous?
The traditions, the steps are, they say, will help you with suicide, and the traditions will help you with homicide. And the reason they say that is the steps help me to have a better understanding of who I am and getting a reliable power greater than myself. And the traditions help me to deal with other people. And they actually work. It works in my marriage.
Can you give us some examples of what might be meeting etiquette?
Yes, I can. Cross-talking. I did not know cross-talking was me talking to you when someone else is talking. I thought cross-talking was me talking to him. And so cross-talking, when they are at the group that I go to, they don't take volunteers, and some people will raise their hand and just start talking. That we don't do that. We can share our last name if we choose to, but generally we don't. One of the best etiquettes: get there on time, and leave when the meeting's over. In fact, there's a meeting before the meeting and one after the meeting, so stay for all three of them, because you need people to know and understand who you are, and we do that by consistently going to the same place around the same people.
What role models do you have in sobriety?
Oh my goodness. I have a role model. One of them is my son. And he's just a good guy. He's 32 years old. Had some really difficult stuff to walk through. And he got sober when he was locked up. And he is still locked up and he's still sober. But he's been able to do a lot of things inside that I got to tell you, I'm really, really impressed with him. We get to talk about the steps, and that's really cool. Because before that, we didn't really talk about step work. He thought it was kind of funny. Like, he thought it was weak, actually. And he said he would be at the house, and I'd be working with women out in the kitchen, and he would just come out and say, "Oh, you guys." What I didn't know that the seed was being planted at that time for him. And when it was his turn, he knew where to go.
What advice do you have for newcomers in AA?
The best advice I can give, just be open-minded. Just be open-minded and be willing. And if you're not willing, dear God, pray for willingness. And in my condition, you had to pray for willingness to be willing. And just go to meetings every day. And the best thing I could say is try to do your best to stay out of your head, because I did that, and I wasted a lot of time just trying to figure things out. So and go to meetings and talk to people. We want to know who you are. We need you.
What advice do you have for old-timers in AA?
Do the steps. The group that I came from, there were a lot of old-timers. And sometimes I think they forget. And they could be a little bit rigid. So I guess my advice is lighten up, relax, have some fun. It's very serious. Alcoholism and Alcoholics Anonymous is very serious. Although we are not a glum lot. We like to have fun.
Last question.
Yay.
Can you please describe what this experience was like?
It was nerve-wracking. However, it made me use I can already see the questions here that I missed, and I'm like, I'd like to do those again, please. But one of them is that God is here. God is here. I can tell when God comes into a meeting that we kind of just all kind of relax a little bit. Not all of us, but, and it is, I'm not at home watching TV. I'm here with other alcoholics on a Friday night. That in itself is a miracle.
Thank you, Deanna, so much for being willing and for coming up here to do this. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now I'll just read this from the old Preamble. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you're free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a big book, it's time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, loan it, scatter it, and then learn from it what it means to be an AA.